What's up, everybody? This is Edward back with another video. Just doing a little walk around real quick. This is actually going to be a real quick video. Like I told you all, I'm still going to be doing some of the same content, but it's going to be some other stuff added into it. What up? What up? Here's the thing. So I was listening to BGS's video about the return, the Empire Strikes Back. Basically, people starting to go at, it basically hashing out older arguments. Remember, I always said the stuff goes along in cycles, and what you have now is people basically saying old shit. And the big reason, and this all feeds into each other. So on the one hand, I'm listening to a video with what BGS said. I'll put that in the community tab. Just go to BGS's videos with the light side and the red dark side going at each other with a little lightsaber thing. Those puppet things are so funny. And he's 17 minutes. He goes and talks about, the history of like when Igmore was first created, when, MGTOW and stuff like that in 2011, and when Igmore was first created to offset off of that, and the S by Sysbm was the off branch of that and stuff like that. And he was talking about rehashing old arguments. And that's one of the things that I spoke on. A lot of dudes come into this space and they think they it's not even about, they think they know shit, and they start operating like females where they say the same shit over and over and over again. The women have already said we've already disproven because we've been in cycles. So what happens is certain dudes have kind of a not really a strong tolerance to hearing shit that's already been said, and dudes saying it like they think this shit is new. It's kind of like folks just now realizing the fucking earth is not flat, it's round. And then they're coming to us about it. And it's like, we already known that. So congratulations, you're where you need to be. So anyway, I'm listening to that video. Then I'm listening to Obsidian's video. And initially in the video, it was King Sigma, Gab, and they were talking about C Boogie and whatever. And I'm glad I listened to the whole thing. And shout out to Gab. Gab made two comments that were very important. And these are really only comments he made. He said, number one, if the conversation is about getting ass, then I don't really need to have that conversation too much longer. And then the second thing he said was, Obsidian is basically saying that if as far as the quote unquote select niggas, and understand, I don't give a fuck. I define select as pre-qualified. The type of dudes that a woman can eyeball, offset, gate, and say, I will give this dude pussy. Without, not so much whether he asked to go on a date or not. It's about, I will give this dude pussy just by eyeballing him. Just by how he looks, I will fuck him. Now, whether he offers a date and do all of that, that's good, but I will fuck him for free. To me, that's what select is. Not just means that you have to, you are not pre-qualified, and therefore you have to basically, it's not about so much work on yourself. It's about, in that woman's mind, you have to calibrate that woman's mind to be pre-qualified. And depending on how wide of a gap that is, like I'm 5'5". If I'm 5'5" and a woman only dates 6 foot, the reality is it's going to be a much wider gap than if a dude is already 6 feet and he can be overweight. See, it just depends. And of course, working on yourself can kind of deal with that as well. But that's really how I see it when it comes to how a female looks at it. That individual female, or you can see that from a group of collective females if you look at the pattern. So the point is, Gab said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said this. He said, if that is, well, I got something for you, cut to the chase, because I actually mentioned you in my other video, because I understood exactly what you was talking about, and Obsidian didn't get it, and that's the other side of it. So I'm actually glad you're here, because I'm going to address that. You can put in the chat whether you agree with me with what I'm saying or not. But anyway, because this won't not going to be too long. My point is, what Obsidian and all this stuff is not as hard and solidified as people think. A lot of this stuff depends on the type of chick you're dealing with. It depends on a lot of different factors. But anyway, what Obsidian was basically saying, and what he has always said, is the biggest problem, to the extent that he wants to talk about the community, because Obsidian is not a community dude. He basically says the biggest issue is that black women and black men don't get along. overall. And this is not something like black, there has been old school folks used to always say black men and black women don't belong in the bedroom. So this is not something that's brand fucking new. It's just a lot more pronounced to the point that nobody can really hide it unless you're really putting your head in your ass to a certain extent. And when Gab said, well, if you want a community, who the women choose and who the men choose is really who the women choose, because the women are ones that are able to do the choosing. The power of a dude is a dude can run. Here's the power of a dude. A dude can say, if a dude is strong enough in his frame to be like, I can talk, it's going to take me talking to 15 chicks to get two. If that dude can get to a point where it's nothing for him to qualify out those 15 women and qualify past whatever bullshit those women on as far as they don't want him or whatever, and get to those two, and then just most scale that up, so every 15 he gets two. That's just an example, hard and fast rule. That's the power a dude has, because women traditionally can't handle rejection like men can. They're just not wired to. Versus a woman has the power of first refusal, so to speak. Now, when you get into being quote unquote select, then obviously that's a little bit in reverse, because a dude at that point gets the best of both worlds because he's already quote unquote pre-qualified. So most of the time, the people in his circle, whether they're in his circle or in his frame from his worldview, the women, it's not so much the women are coming to him, still has to approach, but the choosing signal is obvious. It's like having money. It's like saying, I got a trust fund. You're going to view money differently. If you got 10,000 a month just coming just to be coming, you're going to view money differently than somebody has to work 9 to 5 for it. And I'm not talking about retirement plan. I'm like, look, I'm 33. If you got somebody, let's say that they got a trust fund, I see it all the time when I used to Uber. That's a different thing. The way they view life is a different thing. It's kind of like the selecting, because in the selecting, game is really not necessary. If you're actually select, you don't really need game because you're already being pre-qualified. Because really, the main thing you need to do is just not fuck it up. So if you've already been pre-qualified, then that is what it is. And actually, this is where I'm going to get into the cut to the chase. What cut to the chase, I said this on my last video when I did the channel update. But Obsidian and didn't actually understand what cut to the chase was talking about. See, the thing about Obsidian is Obsidian likes to focus on a narrative. And if you operate without that narrative, he's going to try to drag you into that narrative. Most of the time that works. This situation, it didn't. Because with cut to the chase, because his narrative was only Democrats do a 50-50 plan. Okay, I get where he's coming from with that. Cut to the chase did not fit that narrative because that's not really cut to the chase situation. His situation wasn't, I'm going to do a 50-50 plan in order to attract women to me. His situation, the way I understood it and the way I heard it, was really, he basically made that woman, he basically put out what the house that he knows has high value, and you got somebody that wants to buy that house, you can overcharge that house, overprice that house because they want to tear it down and build something else on it. So it's really, how much do they really want it? Because really, you don't really care about moving or not moving. You cool with moving, but it's like, you don't have to make me an offer. And that's what he did. He basically said, this is what it's going to take for me to come out of the field and actually get into a relationship. Obviously, from what I understood, that woman is probably attractive enough, probably agreeable enough, probably acts right enough. And he'd be like, yeah, you good. I can see this going somewhere, but you got to make me an offer. Meaning, and when I say make me an offer, I mean, I'm not doing that. I don't have to take care of you and do all that shit because I know it's less of me and more of you. Now, cut to the chase just said maybe it's because of his phenotype. In his market, that very well could be true. In the 90s, it was like that, where light-skinned people could do that. So the point is, in the 80s. So the point is, he basically said, look, if you want to come out of the rotation or you want to actually be in a relationship, this is what it's going to take to pull me out of the field. You meet the it's kind of like the reverse of what women do. Women may do, you are pre-qualified. I like how you look. You got the right to check boxes, but you still gonna have to pursue me because that's what it is. It's in reverse. And that's just a matter of understanding where your power is and where it is in relation to her. That can work because she clearly understood where he was. In her mind, she clearly understood that whatever offer he was making was worth it to her to do that. And in a modern female context, these women are not necessarily against, they're not used to being taken care of because that's not how they were wired. So combine that. And then I could believe that he probably say, look, I'm not going to cheat on you. I'm not going to play you. It'll be an actual relationship. If I go in, I'm going in. but this is what it's gonna take to pull out a field. And I know that's what he meant because he said, look, I have no problem being single. I could just go ahead and do the shit I was doing. I was cool on autopilot. She wanted to pull him out the field more than he wanted to make her his girl. And that dynamic is a completely different dynamic. Because that dynamic is if a woman gets out of pocket, how do you deal with her? Well, at best, you cheat to discipline her. Because at the end of the day, you can replace her more than she can replace you. And that's like hitting a hand with a ruler, and at worst you get rid of her. And she knows that. Now you got women that's gonna act insecure on that shit, and I'm not even looking at chat. You got people that's gonna act insecure on that shit, and then you got women that understand that they know they not a fuck bitch, so they know, okay, is he? I'm gonna act right, so you know, and it works. The problem is we get used to dealing with too many women, and they try to have a power dynamic where they try to remove that ability, or they get insecure or whatever. But there are women, girl next door women that perfectly understand how to do that. So I understood his situation did not fit the narrative, what he was talking about as soon as he said it. I have younger brothers that have that dynamic with their girl. My middle brother actually have that same dynamic where he pays more of the bills, but they're essentially roommates. He pays a little bit more of the bills, but for the most part, they are, I'd say 55-45. It's the same dynamic. So that's different. And a lot of these old heads will kind of make it an all or nothing thing. And they've done the same shit to me where they try to say it's all this way, all that way, and then hold up around age. Because that's exactly what the fuck they were doing. It had a lot of them don't even always agree with Obsidian, but they coded up on age. Niggas gotta stop doing that shit. Because that's a y'all are not listening. But that's not really what he's talking about in context to the video I'm talking about. What I'm talking about, he's absolutely right. Obsidian is. Because at the end of the day, you have two camps. You have camp one, which is the dudes that are saying we do not have a social contract. Some people say we do not have a community. We basically have everybody's every man for themselves. And then you on the female side and on the male side, you got dudes trying to do the right thing. And then you got fuckboyism, which is dudes basically doing what they want to because they can kind of raid the parade because of the situation gives it to them the advantage to do it. And then the women are basically trying to blame all men. The women are essentially trying to blame the fuck boys for everybody, even though they really only give a fuck about the fuck boys. But low, this quote unquote being pro black is dudes that, let's say they don't win early in the game, but they build themselves up later in the game. So let's say these dudes are never brand new cars, but they're like certified pre-owned. Then the women want to go to the used car market or the certified pre-owned market after their credit is fucked up, aka baggage, aka all this other shit. They done got some judgments on. When I say financially, I'm really talking about their sexual market value. They're a little bit older. They're a little bit older, a little bit fatter. Obviously, their youth, their time to hit that wall is closer to the clock. So they're expecting them to be happily ever after. And then they want to have this surviving story with what the fuck boys did, as if we're supposed to give a fuck about that. It's all designed to come to one eventuality. It's designed for you to clean up. It's designed for you to be the cleanup man. And the reality is, what Obsidian said in the end of the video, and this is coincides with BGS said, where MGTOW and SYSBM is a threat. These things are threats because it's men exercising their right to say, I don't give a fuck about that. Remember this, women need men far more than men need women. Men are very cool with being alone. Most of them, as a group. More men are cool with being alone, dealing with what they need to deal with, fucking a bitch every once in a while, than women are being without validation. It will emotionally harm a woman being non-validated. And the problem is social media has kind of amplified that because it allows them to get quick validation, but they still need a man to a certain extent. Now you got the rise of bisexuality, which is actually a lot of these women going to because they can't get nowhere else. Don't even get me started on women imprinting women with that dildo and shit. Don't even get me started on that. That's a whole nother video. But my point is, that's the conversation. Then you got the other dudes that are trying to, coming at it where you just having this conversation at all is because you're not getting ass. We're having two different conversations. Those are not the same lane. The dudes that are talking about you just want pussy don't give a fuck about the community. That's what I'm going to start saying. Any dude, whether it's a pickup dating coach or whatever, when they say you're just saying this because you're pussy, they are never saying that in relationship to a community argument. That is not the argument. The argument is the biggest issue with black people is that our women are operating on some different shit than what our men are operating on. You do not see this to the same extent in any other group. Yes, you see similarities. Yes, white people are going through some things, but at the end of the day, white people still worship white supremacy. So at the end of the day, they will still fall in line under that. Trump is actually proof of that. So it's different. We are dealing with no other group has the women actually being able to draw power from another group. White women cannot draw power from any other group. You do not see that. Hispanic women cannot draw power from any other group. You do not see this. It's completely all what they want to do. Latins aim to be white anyway. So even to that extent, that don't count because they all on the same page with that. You only see that with ADOS blacks, black people to a general degree. That's it. So it's a unique thing. So we are in a unique construct. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we're talking about. And Obsidian, it may come off like he's complaining, but at the end of the day, you can never shut him down for the very reason why you said you can't, like BGS said, you can't shut Igmore, MGTOW, Sysbm, these ideologies down. Because the power that Obsidian draws from is what BGS called fertile soil. And he wasn't mentioning Obsidian, I'm just saying fertile soil. The fertile soil are these grievances. And you can see with Gab, with C Boogie, with ARC, with all of them, they will do everything their only answer to the grievances is just improve. Which is code for a nigga, you ain't shit. Which is what women have already been saying. The problem is a man can choose, when it comes to that quote unquote improving, if a man improves, he can improve and leave. Just like how black women will lose weight and then go for white men, which is actually going to be stronger on the black male side because then you got other women coming for him. He also could not improve and still try other markets and find he can do better because it was never about him improving or not. Because what a lot of black men call improving, a lot of black men, what I interpret, this is what that really is. A lot of black men are not compatible with today's black women. Now, some people will say, well, you grew up with each other. How is that? Well, a lot of black men are no longer dealing with that gynocratic bullshit. Just like how people will come in and cut to the chase, talk about doing a 50-50 deal and saying that's not traditional. Dudes are doing their own thing. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it's still their own thing. They're no longer going to operate within a construct that they're told to operate in. The dudes that do that, we typically call simps or blue pill. Now, some of y'all that are older, y'all were in a different situation. Gab has been married for a long time. So that's what I'm talking about. Obsidian, cause when he jumped the broom, that was a long time ago. So that's what I'm talking about. And that's the problem. And the problem is no matter what you say, no matter how you shame black men, you cannot make it worse for black men than it already is. You really can't. Abortions are all off the charts. So we can't say, oh, we're just going to abort your babies. That's already happening at a mass level. You can't, there's nothing else to be done. So now what you're seeing is you're seeing women slowly delve into craziness. Bisexuality, all this liberal, extra liberal shit. They're going insane as a group. Obviously, you have 20% that have what I call a certain level of common sense, where they're going to work. They say, look, if I want 5 things. If I can get 3 or 4, 3.5, I'm good. And you have what you have. And then these women are coming back later on. And then after they get like when I say ran through, I mean the game eats them up and speaks them out. They expect somebody to clean that shit up. Well, your dad ain't around. And so you expect a man to come in here and feel bad for you. And a lot of these niggas are like, no, fuck that. And it's nothing to do with anger. Dudes have lives to live too. A man is not put on this earth to serve a woman. And I'm not even going to say a woman is put on this earth to serve a man. Men have their own lives. And dudes, and I see it in other sectors of YouTube. I see dudes in the geekdom community. There's a black geekdom community. There's a black and white geekdom community with white females. I see these dudes, like we act like the manosphere is like this one thing. And to me to bring it back to the overall point is this is not about, it never was about ass. That's what the women said, and then you had dudes that came along and said it. And I know the women said it because the women back in the day when Chrissy and Paris, they used to say, this is why I dated thugs. This is why I like D-boys. And I'm like, see, what they thought was they were telling us that this is what they're attracted to. They didn't understand. You literally just proved to us that it wasn't that ain't no good men. It ain't this, it ain't that. You literally said that's what you like. That's what we needed you to say. Because now you can't say that's what you don't like. So when you come back and you cry about the outcomes of what you're choosing, let me give it just so people can think I'm being fair. Let me reverse this. Let's say I was talking to a dude. Let's say I was having a conversation with Cut to the Chase. And Cut to the Chase was telling me how he likes strippers or crazy bitches. I tell, like, when I have him at the barbershop, as soon as a dude tells me he likes a crazy bitch, I say everything that crazy bitch does is now on you because you have actually pursued those relationships. If you do, don't come to me talking about what the crazy bitch did when you knowingly engage with crazy bitches. I don't give a fuck how fat the ass is. I don't give a fuck how good the head is. I don't give a fuck how good the pussy is. At that point, you choose to take the good and also the bad with the good. Same thing if you dated strippers. You know, because that was the thing with T-Pain and all that, where I'm in love with a stripper and all that. If you get played by a stripper, Paul George, Drake, that is what it is. Because at that point, you know what you're dealing with. And you're choosing to do it. You never will hear a conversation about black men debating a black man bitching about him fucking with dirty ass, fucked ass women. He got burnt. He got played. No, because you chose to engage in that. The only time we will empathize is if you didn't know that's who it was. And even to a certain extent, we only empathize with it to a certain extent. Because at some point you should have knew. That's why you don't see those conversations amongst black men. But you can go on female YouTube and you see all of this, oh, it ain't your fault, you know, because black men have a certain baseline of accountability. Even at our lowest accountability, black men are 10 times higher on the accountability train as how we hold each other accountable than the women hold them accountable. This is why now the women, a lot of women that are good women are finding it harder to deal in the market because more and more dudes, whether they're on YouTube or not on YouTube, see this shit. And they're not operating like that. So the point is that you can argue the reality all day, all any way you want to. The reality is the reality. And it just is what it is. And the you can't get ass, you can't get pussy argument is an argument that is only made in order to, this is why I would say to Gab. When dudes say dudes are mad because they can't get ass, they are only making that argument because they don't want to address the social contract argument. Because what we're saying is either true or it is false. It is either true that black men and black women fundamentally don't get along because black women on a different agenda. Professor Black Truth has said this. Jason Black has said this. Everybody says it. They just don't say it all the time. Because to them, they see that as a form of white supremacy division. So they don't bring it up all the time. But Professor Black Truth has very much said that black women portrayed black men in the 60s. Jason Black has stated it. So your pro-black, pro-blacks have said it. So the point is that ass argument is only designed to basically deflect. Because real talk, if it's really down to getting ass, there's a lot of different ways to get ass, whether black men approve of the tactics or not. That's not the argument we're having. We were never having that argument. They don't have an answer for what the fuck we're talking about. And that is why they bring it up. That's it. That's where it starts. That's where it ends. So you leaving? Yeah, I took a long lunch, so he gonna look at me like an idiot. But anyway, I'll see you in there. But anyway, that's why motherfuckers talk about what the fuck I'm talking about. Telling me like I ain't like, oh, like nobody directly says, oh, you ain't getting ass. That's why you talk about women all the time. I'm laughing. Like, nigga, I'm 5'5". I could get black. Like, so even me being short, I can still get them. I'm talking about the ones that I want. So when people say that, I'm laughing when they say that because I'm like, y'all really act like that's the case because that's what y'all have bought into. That's not what people are talking about. And they never were. It's kind of like saying, I talk about poverty all the time. Black poverty. I'm talking about the group. I'm not talking about myself. But see, people can't understand that you don't have to be in a situation to talk about it. And it really goes, this is why I talk about empathy a lot. This quote unquote select and non-select Jews. Because they don't have empathy. They don't care. And the reality is most of them don't care about the community because they're getting what they need to get out of it. They only care about the community to the point that these bitches are fucking. And they're projecting that onto us because that's what they think. They're assuming that that's what other people are thinking. And Obsidian does it in his own way, but BGS is saying the same shit. BGS has what, 3 kids? With a couple of different women? So, grandkids now? It's not just dudes that are saying it. They don't have kids that haven't proven that they can get women. Like, I don't understand why people don't, what they don't get about that. I could remove any dude that is childless, and we still have more than enough people to have this conversation. So it's not that, and it never was. And I'm glad people finally got there, but now it's like welcome to real conversation. As far as the SYSBM thing, I mean, Obsidian's already been doing it. That's nothing new. It's just now he's making it official. And quite frankly, that's doing the Lord's work. Because the reality of the situation is the only way really to actually, that's the only way that black men really have to terraform the environment is to basically create a gap in the supply and demand. If you really care about the community, that's the only thing that's going to bring these women to the table in the way we need them to. You have to create a gap in the demand, the supply. Because we know they can't go nowhere else. So anyway. Yeah, I don't know what y'all doing in the chat. Well, hey, I'll see y'all. I'll go back through the chat later and answer some of y'all questions, but I'm good now. So anyway, peace out.